Welcome to the CrossCounsel podcast. We believe negative emotions shouldn't run your life. We invite you to take a deep dive into this challenging transformational journey that goes far beyond this podcast. Join Executive Director and expert facilitator Steve Freitag and me, John Crevillian, as we discuss how to deeply experience the love and truth of Jesus. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the CrossCounsel podcast. I, of course, am your host, John Crevillian, and I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Freitag. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you for asking on this fine day.
Oh, yeah. It's real nice out, actually, over here. Sun's out for once, finally getting a little bit of summer, or a hint of it, at least. So no complaints here. And we are joined today with a special guest, returning once again. It's Pastor Pher. How are you, sir?
Woo! I'm good. I'm having a great day.
Good.
Yeah.
For those of you who are only on the audio, Pher was championing himself like a boxer, it looked like, right?
Yeah, you know that thing where people, I feel like it's an old-timey thing, but
Right.
the crowd goes
Looney
wild.
Tunes sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those situations.
Yeah, word.
They do
I do
come
that
up.
with my kids a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
I do. Yeah, we do lots of dorky stuff at my house, but some of them, it's like introductions, chanting, like, let's go, Mom, that kind of stuff, That's how we roll.
That's fun.
Wow.
That's fun.
My wife is an under the table, chant starter,
Like she's the first domino, like in any situation.
Yeah, but very under the table. Nobody would ever know it was her who started it, that kind of thing. Yeah. An instigator, you could say.
Yes.
There you go. For maybe you get this, but growing up in the 90s, I always wanted to be the kid that started a food fight by yelling food fight.
Oh, totally. And then somebody else gets in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. You kick off the whole thing and then other kids get in trouble, but that power is...
One of my wife's favorite stories to tell about being in school was her... I don't even remember the details of the story. All I know is that she started something and then her best friend was the one who got taken to the principal's office for it. Because my wife is like this, she never got in trouble, whatever. But she can move the needle a little bit to get somebody else in trouble.
Paul prays in Ephesians 3 that we would be rooted and established in love. Love that surpasses knowledge so that we may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. At CrossCounsel, it's miraculous to watch people transform by the love and truth of Jesus. But some people need a little extra help. We never turn anyone away because of their inability to cover their session fees. Would you be willing to cover that cost for somebody who is looking for freedom from something in their life? We are inviting you to be a part of what CrossCounsel is doing here. Would you be willing to donate to cover someone? Bless them, though you've never met them. You can do that today at crosscounsel.com.
But yeah, outside of food fights and chanting and all that good stuff, we are going to get started today with our topic of discussion. And that's just kind of Pher's experience with CrossCounsel and, how it's affected him, how it's affected his family, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I guess just a quick summary to start it off. For if you want to just tell us how you got involved real quick with CrossCounsel here. And for people who haven't heard you previously on the podcast.
Yeah, totally. We have lots of mutual people. Our worlds intersect quite a bit. I'm a pastor at First Free Church in Onalaska, Wisconsin, and you guys, La Crosse, Onalaska office is literally right across the street now. But that's representative, I think, of the way we're seeking to minister here, and what you guys do is there's a lot of overlap. And there's a lot of overlap in circle too, people. So I think that's probably the simplest way for me to describe how I first connected with Steve and CrossCounsel was just through mutual people that have been impacted in my world by the ministry of CrossCounsel, and then like, being confronted with my own crap and having no, I don't know, how do you say it? Maybe coming to the end of myself. That's kind of the Christianese way to talk about it, but just seeing repeated patterns of destructive behavior, becoming my own worst enemy. I think the major kind of the major impetus, or the thing that I think pushed me over the edge was, it's having kids, and
Okay.
my oldest son turning 3. He's 7 now, but he when he turned 3, I found out I was an angry man. And I didn't know that I was until I had a 3-year-old. I don't know if that's other people's experience, but it certainly was mine. Like, holy crap, I have issues. And if I don't do something, I don't see myself just magically like poof, getting better. I think God does that sometimes, but that's the 1%. I think that 99% is, I got to engage with this process, or with a process. I don't even know what the heck that is. And here I am, like, I'm the spiritual man, the man of the cloth. I'm supposed to have those answers, but I got to tell you, I didn't have the answers for myself. So that was the impetus, I think, initially.
Sure.
So, yeah. And I'll just keep talking for a second. Sorry.
Go for it.
And always kind of knowing behind the scenes is like, there's a fair amount of brokenness just in my family of origin. My parents divorced after 35 years of marriage, literally right before I had my first kid. And there's a fair amount of brokenness in my relationship with my dad, and always kind of knowing, like, man, I see myself turning into a version of, my dad was amazing in so many ways, but he had his own brand of brokenness like the rest of us do. And I could see mine intersecting with his, and I was becoming some of the things that I know really affected me negatively about my father. Explosive anger, uncontrollable, like, thought patterns that led to explosive anger, being those things. And like, and also knowing, like, man, there's something broken inside of me in my relationships with my family of origin. And I don't even know I don't know how to do anything about that. I want Jesus to heal me, but I don't even know what the heck that looks like. So yeah, there you go. I'll stop for a while.
Right. It sounds good. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is just to talk about, what is it that we want to avoid when we're raising our kids? And John, you grew up as a PK, a pastor's kid, and just some of the things that you might do differently if you have kids, and just being able to recognize some of those landmines, because nobody triggers us more in our life than those people that we value the most. So spouses, kids, parents, close friends, we value that. And that's why those arrows seem to go a little bit deeper as well. And there's nothing like a 3-year-old to expose some things inside of us that we don't want to take a look at. So I think I might have heard a message where you kind of joked about the idea of opportunity for growth. I think you might have said that in your message, sort of tongue in cheek as well, right? We don't want to come across as tongue in cheek. It actually is a real deal, like opportunity for growth. But so often I think what it turns into for us is opportunity just to shame ourselves and to get angry with ourselves because we failed once again, but there's a better way.
Yes. I agree. Yeah. I think that, Yeah, I've been thinking recently just about that idea, Steve, opportunity for growth. The Bible just says so much, and I don't want to directly correlate like the suffering the Bible talks about and having children. um, but
Close, but not direct.
yes,
It's more like
there's some
5
sort
plagues,
of
not 10.
yeah, there's some sort of analogy. There's some sort of analogous relationship between the two. Like, I think in suffering, you lose your ability to mask up or to I don't know, like become a mediator between the world and your own brokenness.
Mhm.
Like that just goes out the window when crap hits the fan, for
Mhm.
lack of a better way to say it.
Mhm.
And I think like the pressure of parenting is very similar. Like in moments of high stress, high tension, um, you in moments where honestly you're confronted with your actual, like the illusion of control. Like we don't actually have any control, and parenting just is like puts that right in front of you in a way that not maybe in a way that also going through something really difficult does. But yeah, it just both. I mean, biblically are opportunities to be confronted with your own brand of brokenness and sin, and either yeah, like you said, Steve, allow the shame and the guilt to become the narrative over your life, the banner over your life, which just leads to more of that brokenness and sideways behavior and becoming our own worst enemy, hurting the people we love the most. And then, yeah, or an opportunity to come to run to Jesus, to his people, and seek, yeah, healing and transformation, like actually becoming a different kind of a person from the inside out rather than behavior modifying kind of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's so much easier for us or for a church to teach. Here are some of the things that you should do. You can lay those things out. You can have outlines. You can, have chapters dedicated to this is what you should do, whether it's raising a child or how you live in a marriage relationship or with friends. This is what you should do. And I think what we do is significantly important. But I think what I hear you saying is we should have a bit more focus on what are we to become.
yes.
And I think those can be two different things. And I think that's the more difficult thing to go after is what am I to become? And I sort of have as a backdrop, what I'm to become is what I already am. I just don't know it yet. And I'm trying to discover who I am. Who have I been created to be? And the more that I allow God to chip away those things that aren't really the genuine, authentic me, the more I can come into that experience of what it means. And I think that impacts everything in my life. That not only impacts me as a dad, but hopefully it impacts me when I go to Walmart and I check out with a cashier and I'm kind and generous and friendly to that person, or the people that can't do anything for us. I think there's something very important for us to take a look at. How do we treat people who can't do anything for us? We posture ourselves in certain positions when it's like, oh, I know I can get something out of this person if I play my cards right.
Yeah.
And
I was just last night talking to a group of people, and that idea, Steve, of like, what does it look like when, what is it? I think we live in a world, and we live in a world that is driven by self-centeredness. And that's not new. That's Garden of Eden stuff. Not the original 2 chapters, but what happens in the 3rd chapter of Genesis stuff. But there does seem to be this kind of ramping up of the pressure of that, to the point where like the message I think that is in the air that we breathe is like only have relationships with people who you can get, who are going to benefit you, you know, and only really interact with the kind of the people that are going to benefit you. And that's deeply damaging to a society, I think. It's deeply damaging to even just like the idea of family, because how the heck are you supposed to have a family if that's the ethos that you live by? Like you'll break that family.
Right.
And then you'll have to deal with the broken pieces of that inside of you and inside of the people that were in that family. How the heck are you supposed to have a church when that's the idea, right? Like the New Testament is just, countercultural and a lot of, not that that's like a revelation from heaven, but I don't know, just something it's funny you brought that up today. I was thinking about that same thing last night. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I wanted to comment on something else you said too, Steve. Like I totally, that phrase of, you said something like becoming the person that you were meant to be, or the person that you truly are, I think is how you said it. And that's kind of the goal of shaving off the, Brennan Manning. You guys know Brennan Manning, author, teacher, always talked about the false self. One of my favorite books of all time, Abba's Child. He talks like extensively about the false self, and like that we live out of this place of being the kind of person that we feel like the world has kind of made us into, through defense mechanisms and sin and all this other stuff. But like, I feel like I'm on this journey really since, my son turned 3, which is also when I turned 30. So there's more caught up in that, but like, I want to become the person that I was before the world told me who I had to be. And I think that that's a process that God has me on, a journey that God has me on. And I'm becoming rather obsessed with that. That journey.
Really? Okay.
I am like, how do people actually change? You know what I mean? I think you guys think and have incredible insight into that in a way that I haven't seen in Christian circles, because most of the time we just think it's behavior modification. It's do this, don't do that. Right.
Yeah.
Like get saved, get your get out of hell free card, and then stop doing that stuff and start doing this stuff. You know what I mean? But that doesn't work if we're honest.
There we go.
Like to some extent it maybe does. And that's good. Like praise God for our willpower and how sometimes we can stop doing really destructive things. That's great. But like, it didn't work for me, that's what I was kind of trying to say at the beginning is like, I need something else. So I'm starting to become obsessed with that question of like, how do people actually change? Like from the inside out. So like you're talking about, Steve, like, so that the Walmart encounter with the cashier is genuinely different. And it's coming out of this place of I'm this transformed person. And so what flows out of me is kindness and generosity, not, oh yeah, I'm in this moment. I'm a Christian. So I should give this woman $5 more. And that's a hard distinction sometimes to draw. Sometimes there's a fine line between just like, sometimes you just got to do the right thing. You don't have to feel something extravagant to get there. But anyways, I'm yammering.
Yeah, I like the quote. I've heard it from Wayne Jacobson, but he said he took it from somebody else, and I don't know if he even remembers who he got it from. But he said when it comes to the 10 Commandments, or even broader, the law is there to show you how to treat people you don't love. Oh, okay. Like it's the backup system. Like when we truly love people, we treat them with the respect that they deserve. with the dignity, with that
I
kind
got to
of
write
thing.
that
But
down.
yeah, and that's probably not even an exact quote, but it's just a great idea. The law is there to show us how to treat people that we don't love. And
Yeah.
and if you're listening to the podcast, you can actually, rewind that 8 times. But
There you go. There's been a
They
few
could-
quotes here.
there you go.
They couldn't do that back in, 4000 BC.
But they remember, we've talked about that a lot in our men's Bible study and probably in our life group as well, is that when scripture was written, it was written to be read. And people were so much more
Yes.
attentive, right? Because it was, okay, somebody's going to stand up and read one of Paul's letters. And it's like, that's all they had. They were going to walk away from that meeting trying to memorize probably everything that was said in that letter. And we just take that for granted. Like, we can look up 18 different translations of that scripture and we have it in front of us. We have it in our pocket at any time. But yeah, the idea that we think that we're just the most sophisticated generation that's ever lived. Well, maybe technology wise, but it doesn't mean that we are the smartest or the wisest when it comes to those more important things. So yeah. So John, we haven't let you, yeah. John, we haven't let you jump in on this whole thing. Go for
No
it.
worries. I'm letting the wise guys talk with each other. I'm just here thinking about food fights. But I have noticed actually kind of an interesting interconnected theme, honestly, through a bunch of really good quotes. Pher initially saying, who am I even when I am healed? Who is that person? I don't know that I've ever been there, and I don't know if I would recognize what healing looks like, let alone what I would look like in that space. And then Steve saying, I'm not becoming someone else. I'm becoming who I am supposed to be as I let God chip me or sculpt me into that. So there's been a lot of interesting identity stuff. And Pher, you even mentioned that you're kind of becoming very fascinated, very attentive to that whole journey of okay, what was the other quote? Who am I outside of, or who should I be before society said who I should be?
Yeah.
All that. That's all really fascinating stuff. And I mean, just kind of connecting it back to CrossCounsel, that's something that I was kind of thinking about, especially my initial times here where I went through the process. After a couple of sessions, I got some pretty deep, molecular level, healing in my past here. And that had a chain reaction throughout the rest of my life, to the point where it altered memories, the point where it altered my behavior and altered my viewpoint on certain things, where I was like, oh, okay. And the analogy I always use, and people who have listened to this podcast know where I'm going with this, but the analogy I always use is that I go with the idea that your mind is like a house, right? And there's one room that's in complete disrepair, probably more than one, but for the sake of the analogy, there's one room that's in complete disrepair, and you avoid that. And even looking in there is gross. And you're like, that's not going to get fixed. And well, after this whole melt process, after my time at CrossCounsel, it wasn't that the room was cleaned. It was, but rather that hallway just kept going. There wasn't even a door there anymore. It was like it had been completely redone, completely. That chunk of damage was removed from me. And it's such a bizarre feeling to be like, okay, that was some pretty defining trauma, but now that's not there anymore. Or maybe it is in some little traces here and there, but the core of it, that core lie, that core emotion has been dealt with. Christ has dealt with that in me, and it's affecting who I am today,
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just a wild process. And I think just how much this whole process can affect your core identity, and how much this whole process just allows Christ to do exactly what Steve was saying, to get into these places and chip away the parts that he doesn't want,
Yeah.
This has been the CrossCounsel Podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, share with your friends, and look for us on social media. The world will become a much better place, and Jesus will be seen in a much better light the more we are transformed by His truth and love. We'll see you next time, everybody.